Welcome to the Happy Rebel podcast, where we explore the sacred in between, the liminal spaces where healing, growth, and transformation take root. I'm your host, Kelly Street, therapist, coach, and the heart behind Happy Rebel, where we blend self-development practices with the tools to support your journey. It's my mission to help others embrace both the light and the dark within us. Here, we dive deep into living authentically, navigating transitions, and finding meaning in the shadows. You'll hear soulful conversations and practical wisdom shared by guests, along with my own teachings and reflections. So whether you're seeking guidance through a tough transition, looking to ignite your creativity, or craving a deeper connection with yourself, you're in the right place. This is the Happy Rebel podcast. I'm so glad you're here. Begin by finding a comfortable position. Gently close your eyes or soften your gaze. Take a deep breath in through your nose and exhale slowly through your mouth. Feel the weight of your body where it meets the earth. Allow yourself to arrive fully in this moment. With your next inhale, imagine breathing in clarity. With your exhale, release any tension or noise from your day. Bring your attention to the center of your chest, to your heart space. Imagine a soft, warm light there, a light of truth and discernment. Silently repeat to yourself, I trust what is and isn't for me. I honor my inner knowing. Take one more deep breath, and when you're ready, gently open your eyes or come back to this present moment. So, today, the topic is discernment. Discernment is such an important thing to talk about, to be able to know and recognize and understand for yourself. But first, let's define what is discernment. What does it mean? Discernment is the ability to see clearly, to make choices that align with your values and your truth. Discernment is similar to intuition. It's sort of an extension of intuition. I'll get into a little bit of that later. But where intuition is the internal knowing or the nudge that we get inside, discernment is kind of the next step of what do you do with that information that you get, where you have a knowing, you have a little nudge, what you do with that information that you get from your intuition. So that is discernment. So there have been a lot of times when I personally ignored my discernment and regretted it, where I made choices that didn't align with my values and truth because I wasn't listening to, I wasn't able to read through the noise that was coming up and actually access what is for me and what is not for me. So one of the times in my life when I ignored my discernment, I think the strongest was when I was in between my divorce and dating and ending up with my now husband. I was dating someone who was not the right fit for me and was not the right person, but I was too afraid to be alone and to spend time by myself. So in trying to fill that void and fill space with someone, I dated a person who really created a lot of unhealthy engagements and unhealthy habits in my life. He was essentially a functioning alcoholic in his mid to late 20s. And through engaging in a relationship with him, I became almost a functioning alcoholic as well, where I would drink every day, drink too much, drink during work, just really gross, ugly habits that were showing up in me because I was trying to numb all of the voices inside that were telling me that I needed to make changes and that I needed to do things differently. And so in order to keep living the life and doing what I was doing every day, making these choices that didn't align, I was drinking to compensate and to drown out those voices, literally drown them out with alcohol. Once I had some clarity and was able to have some moments where I realized that my body did not want or need the poison of alcohol to be running through it. I know that's kind of a strong statement. I actually do still drink wine and do enjoy wine. But once I was able to have that clarity and reduce the alcohol consumption, I was able to see that I needed to make a lot of changes in my life. I needed to stop dating this person. I needed to start working out regularly. I needed to stop drinking or reduce my drinking severely, which luckily was not actually addicted to the alcohol. So I was able to do that on my own. I needed to start seeking some more therapy and some more self-growth and really just basically prune back things in my life that I had allowed in to overtake my discernment and my intuition. The reason that discernment matters as a thing to talk about and to begin to align yourself with is that a lack of discernment leads to burnout. It leads to self-doubt, and it leads to us seeking external validation, as I did in that relationship, to fulfill ourselves. So, what is discernment? I've already given you the definition. I'll repeat it again. The ability to see clearly, to make choices that align with your values and your truth. Discernment differs from judgment as well. Judgment, we kind of often confuse the two, and judgment really has this shame or this superiority around it. Discernment feels neutral or grounded in our bodies, and discernment is really about cultivating self-trust. And so I'm talking about cultivating, learning, building, because I see discernment as a skill that we build. It's not just an innate trait. It can be an innate trait, but through trauma, through self-doubt, through different things that happen to us in life that cause us to question our inner knowledge, we become disconnected and the skill or the trait of discernment. So I mentioned a little bit ago the difference between discernment and intuition. So discernment is really the practice of consciously evaluating and interpreting information, experience, or your feelings. It does involve bringing intuition, reason, and reflection together to help make those aligned choices, but discernment is really the decision-making process. Discernment feels like clarity. It might take longer to develop discernment than quick intuition, but discernment really leaves you at the end of it with a sense of confidence and peace in your decisions and in what you're doing. Discernment involves both the heart and the mind. It takes that intuitive hit that you get, and discernment filters it through your experience, through your knowledge, and through your understanding. Intuition provides, as I said, that raw insight, that initial feeling that you get about a person or a place or a decision. And then discernment is where you take that intuitive hit and you run it through a filter. You ask yourself, does this align with my values, my truth, and my needs? Together, discernment and intuition create a really powerful internal guidance system. Intuition offers the spark, and discernment is the map that tells you which direction to go. Intuition is often quick and quiet, and it comes without explanation. Discernment is slower because it involves a process of checking in with yourself. It requires pausing, reflecting, and sometimes even questioning that intuitive hit to make sure that it does align with your highest good. So an example of this is you walk into a room and immediately you feel uncomfortable. You have an intuition that there is something happening in the room. Discernment is what helps you figure out why you feel that way. It allows you to notice the energy of the space, the person or people in the room, or to reflect and see if what's happening, that intuition, is your own projections over what's going on. And then discernment helps you decide what to do about that intuition. Discernment is a truly important skill to cultivate because it actually helps you prevent people pleasing and the exhaustion of trying to be all things to all people, because you're getting more in touch with your truth, your compass, your guiding force. Discernment is also important because it helps us accept the reality that not everything is for us, and that's a good thing. I'll talk more a little bit about that in the practices that I'm about to talk about. But before I get to those practices, the third reason that discernment is important to cultivate is that it allows for deeper self-trust and clarity in decision-making. So if I imagine myself back 12 years ago when I was going through a real dark night of the soul and making choices and decisions that were based on what other people wanted or what other people were putting in my life so that I didn't have to make choices and decisions. If I had started to develop my discernment skills and was a little bit more aware of and in touch with them then, I would not have gone through that period of time, that near year of my life, where I was going down an unhealthy and unaligned path in my life. And I can also argue that we need those periods of time to help us grow or learn new skills or learn new things about ourselves, like learning discernment. So I probably needed that. And also, what if I had already developed that self-trust and that clarity in my ability to make decisions? I wonder what I would have done differently. So, how you can practice discernment in everyday life if you're having trouble getting clarity or alignment about the decisions that you're making, or you are looking to teachers or guides to help make decisions for you. This is actually something that I find a lot in my work with individuals, is that they will look to me to be their source of discernment and their source of clarity. And a lot of our practice and a lot of our work is around developing their intuition, their discernment skills, self-trust within themselves. That's so funny to say, but that is what a lot of this work is. So I have 4 practices for you to try out. The first is what I call "this isn't for me" practice. So instead of forcing yourself to like or to do something, try saying, "this isn't for me," without shame or judgment. So an example of how this practice actually came to me was that I was at a women's retreat and they had brought in a speaker to share some ideas and thoughts with us. Immediately, I knew this person is not for me. And I was starting to get riled up. I was starting to have some emotions or some feelings about that. Just kind of this yuckiness of like, oh, I don't like what she's saying. I don't like how this feels. And I just had this flash of, I heard a voice actually say, "It's okay. She isn't for you." And I looked around the room and I saw that there were several women at the retreat who were eating up her every word, who were just delighting in the fact that she was there. And I went, oh, okay, she isn't for me. She isn't for me. And that idea, that acknowledgement just allowed me to realize that I actually could accept that I could be at this talk. I could see that the speaker was giving interesting or good information, but that I just didn't need it, or that it wasn't for me. It was for the other people who were there. And it was so beautiful to see them take in and enjoy the information she was providing and know that I didn't have to attach any sort of judgment or shame to that. Cool. So the second practice is a body check-in. This is pretty simple. It's defining where you feel a yes and where you feel a no. I will often have people practice this when they go to the grocery store. So we all know the foods that we like and the foods that we don't like, or the foods that feel good in our bodies, I should say, and the foods that don't feel good in our bodies. And so I have people go stand in front of the veggie aisle, and maybe it's like broccoli, where they don't love to eat broccoli, they want to eat healthier, but it's just really hard to convince themselves to do it, to eat vegetables in general. So I have them go in front of the vegetable aisle and just stand there. Maybe they can close their eyes, they don't have to. And just notice, where do I feel a yes in my body with this food? Is this food that nourishes me? Yes. And then to go stand in maybe the processed food section or like the chip section and ask, is this food that nourishes me? And where they feel the yes or the no in their body as they're going throughout the store, asking themselves, is this something that will nourish me? And usually people will feel that discernment as kind of a straight line through the middle of their body, just this knowing that this is a yes. And the no will feel a little chaotic or like a rejection or icky. And that allows you to know for yourself whether something is a yes for you or a no for you in practicing discernment. Okay, the third discernment practice. This is really kind of an extension of that body check-in, but I call this micro discernment. So micro discernment is just noticing the little things, whether it's food or clothes or people or work tasks, that feel right versus tasks or people or food or clothing that feels forced. So like you get ready in the morning and the pair of jeans that you typically love, that you wear a lot, you put them on and they're just not as comfortable. They're just not as grooving on your body as they normally are. They're just like a little bit wrong. Can you allow yourself to say, not today? I'm going to wear a different pair of pants, or I'm going to wear a skirt today because that's what would feel better on my body today. And just allowing without shame or judgment to be in the right alignment with what feels good in your body or on your body that day. Micro discernment. All right, the fourth discernment practice is energy awareness. So this is simply asking yourself the question of who or what drains you versus energizes you. So we all have those friends, or maybe not even friends, those people in our lives who energize us, bring us life. And we have the people who drain us and are really pulling our energy source away. So who in your life or what in your life is bringing you energy or draining you? This is a really great journaling practice to do, is just to sit down and have two columns. One column is energizes, one column is drains, and just note down a few of those things for yourself. And the more you start noting them down and labeling them or listing them, the more you're going to notice them showing up in your life. So there you have it. So the last thing I just want to talk about quickly is the fear of discerning. So sometimes people avoid discernment because they're afraid of rejecting people or feeling guilt or being mean. Because when we bring discernment into our lives, we may have to cut some people out. We may have to do a job differently. We may have to take on or let go of some tasks that we have some fear about. And this fear is understandable. It can be difficult to push things away or make different choices or decide that something or someone is not for you. I get it. And yet, discernment actually brings us better relationships, not worse ones. Our clarity, our internal guidance system, will bring us closer to who we are and closer to the people and the things that we are supposed to have in our lives for our higher good, for our growth. The beautiful thing about discernment when we practice it for ourselves is that we allow the other people in our lives to do the same. Us practicing discernment gives other people the ability to practice their own discernment. We don't have to be for everyone, just like everyone is not for us, which is pretty great. In closing, I just want you to think about the one thing, or maybe a couple of things, that you have been forcing yourself to like or forcing yourself to accept that truly isn't in alignment with who you are. Here's a journaling prompt to go along with that. What in my life is no longer for me? Where am I afraid to admit this? And finally, an affirmation that might be helpful to jot down and repeat for yourself. I honor what is and isn't for me, knowing that discernment brings me closer to my truth. And there you have it. Happy aligning. Good luck with your discernment practices. I wish you the best in figuring out what your yeses and nos are. And something I would like to offer that might be helpful for you in this journey, deepening your practices of getting in touch with what is for you and what isn't, is that if you go to happyrebel.com, you can go to our practices section and you can find some guided meditations as well as a 5 ritual workbook and meditation series that will allow you to get a little bit more in touch with your internal shadows, the things that may not be known to you at this moment, or things that you're trying to get more deeply in touch with and heal. So you can do all of those things for free. They are marked at $1, But if you just type in the code PRACTICE, you can get those things for free, both the 5 rituals to engage with your shadows or for those 3 meditations that I mentioned. Type in the code word PRACTICE and they are yours for free. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for being part of the Happy Rebel podcast community. Stay connected with us on Instagram at Happy Rebel. If you've enjoyed our episodes, please consider rating, liking, and reviewing the podcast. It truly does help us grow. Until next time, this is Kelly Street. Remember, embrace the dark and the light.